Contrary to most countries around the world, the transition into 2025 in South Korea happened very differently. No countdown, no fireworks, just the sound of prayer bells ringing after a devastating aviation disaster. South Koreans remain immersed in grief following a horrific plane crash on December 29 at Muan International Airport, which claimed 179 lives, leaving only 2 survivors. The 2 lucky survivors were both crew members, seated at the rear when the Jeju airplane met its fate. This raises the question, is this seating position safer? Was it the key to the miraculous survival of the 2 South Korean flight attendants? Before diving into today's story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any new videos. On the morning of December 29, a Boeing 737-800 operated by Jeju Air, carrying a total of 181 people from Bangkok, Thailand, experienced landing gear issues while attempting to land at Muan International Airport, about 288 kilometers from Seoul, South Korea. According to initial reports, as the plane prepared to land, air traffic control warned of a flock of birds in the area. Just 1 minute later, the pilot made an emergency call, and moments after, the plane landed on its belly, crashed into a concrete wall, and burst into flames. The accident killed 179 people, most of whom were South Korean citizens, with only 2 being Thai nationals. Of the 181 people on the ill-fated flight, a miracle occurred for just 2 Jeju Air flight attendants, Mr. Lee and Ms. Koo. The crashed plane was a Boeing 737-800, which can seat up to 189 passengers and typically has 4 crew seats, 2 in the front and 2 in the rear of the passenger cabin. The 2 attendants are believed to have survived because they were in the area known as the galley at the back of the plane, behind the last row of seats. This is where the flight attendants assigned to serve the rear section of the plane are stationed. These simple foldable crew seats are usually installed near the airplane doors or in the galley, with emergency safety equipment nearby. Depending on the aircraft's design and structure, flight attendants may sit in jump seats to prepare for landing. Jeju Air policy dictates that during landings, flight attendants sit on jump seats facing passengers in the emergency exit rows, with their seatbelts fastened. Lee and Koo were reportedly seated in jump seats near the rear emergency exit, facing away from the passenger cabin. Flight attendants wear full-body harness seatbelts, unlike the lap belts worn by passengers. These special harness seatbelts are designed to secure the body more firmly than regular seatbelts. This is considered a factor that helped minimize injuries. The exact location where firefighters rescued the 2 attendants was near the rear emergency exit. Firefighters accessed the rear fuselage after hearing cries for help. They found the male crew member standing, while the female crew member was pinned under a fallen cabinet. Both were fairly alert, but only the female crew member was able to speak. Muan Fire Chief Lee Jung-hyun, who directly approached the ill-fated plane, said, "Only the tail section was not completely deformed. The rest of the plane was almost unrecognizable." It is still unclear whether the surviving crew members used any safety equipment, as the investigation is ongoing. Experts previously revealed that the safest seats on a plane are generally located in the middle or rear sections. Most injuries and fatalities in plane crashes occur in the front section. According to the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, passengers seated in the rear section have a 10 to 15% higher survival rate in crashes. However, it's difficult to generalize the safety of specific seats, as accidents vary widely. In crashes like the disaster in South Korea, the impact is concentrated on the front of the plane. However, in cases of engine fires, flames can spread to the tail section of the fuselage. In the event of an explosion, the area near the wings, where the fuel tanks are located, may sustain the most damage. In this particular crash, the passenger plane attempted a landing without landing gear. The tail section was severed during the collision with the runway's front structure, allowing the 2 attendants a chance to survive. A 2015 study by Time magazine, which analyzed 17 aviation accidents between 1985 and 2000, found that the rear third of the plane had a 32% fatality rate. The fatality rates for the front and middle thirds of the plane were 38% and 39%, respectively. The highest fatality rate was for seats near the middle aisle at 44%. In 2007, Popular Mechanics magazine analyzed 20 plane crashes since 1971 and concluded that the survival rate for passengers in the rear section was 69%. The survival rates for the front and middle sections of the cabin were 49% and 56%, respectively. If a plane crashes or skids off the runway into a solid structure, the front section typically absorbs most of the impact, leaving the tail section less damaged. However, in the event of an explosion, the area near the wings, where fuel tanks are located, suffers the most damage. In 2012, the Discovery Channel conducted a real-life experiment by crashing a Boeing 727, carrying crash test dummies into a desert. The results showed that the front of the plane experienced forces 12 times greater than gravity during impact, while the middle and rear sections experienced forces 8 and 6 times greater, respectively. Researchers also concluded that the middle and rear sections had significantly lower fatality rates compared to the front of the plane. In the Jeju Air crash, the Boeing 737-800 struck a concrete wall and burst into flames, but the tail section broke off, escaping the risk of fire. However, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration emphasizes that no seat on a plane can be considered the safest, as every crash is unique and depends on various factors, such as how the plane lands and whether a fire occurs. The ongoing debates surrounding the incident continue among experts. But what do the survivors, those who actually experienced the nightmare, have to say? Lee is one of 2 Jeju Air flight attendants who miraculously survived after the plane veered off the runway, caught fire, and broke apart. He and a female colleague were rushed to Mokpo Hospital for emergency treatment after being pulled from the wreckage by rescuers. The violent impact left them injured, but not in life-threatening condition, however. The crash left Lee in shock with temporary memory loss. Upon being brought to the hospital, he repeatedly asked the doctors, "What happened? Why am I here?" The male attendant only remembers sitting in the crew seat at the rear of the plane with his seatbelt fastened before the crash. He recalls feeling the plane touch down, but doesn't know what happened after that. According to hospital reports, Lee suffered a fractured left shoulder and a head injury, but remained conscious and was able to walk normally. At his family's request, Lee was transferred to a hospital in Seoul the same day. Another survivor of the tragedy is a female attendant named Koo, in her mid-20s. She recounts in panic, smoke was coming from one of the engines, and then it exploded. Koo is currently being treated for a scalp laceration, a fractured ankle, and abdominal issues, though none of her injuries are life-threatening. On December 30, 2024, a photo said to capture the final moments of the captain in the recent Jeju Air crash was posted on Threads. The photo garnered significant attention, receiving thousands of likes and comments. The poster of the photo wrote, "The captain's final moment." His hand remained on the control panel until the very last second. "I believe the captain did everything he could." Reportedly, the image is a screenshot from a video showing the plane belly landing before colliding with the approach guidance station. In the image, the captain is seen reaching for the overhead control panel in the cockpit. Many netizens express sorrow and respect for the captain's actions, believing the image depicts the captain doing his best and preparing for the impact. According to the Korea Jungae Daily, the captain of the flight, 45-year-old Han, had over 800 flight hours of experience. Colleagues highly regarded him for his exceptional flying skills. Most opinions agree that the belly landing appeared quite stable, even to someone unfamiliar with aviation. The captain must have relied on his extensive experience, It's heartbreaking that the explosion occurred before he could take any further action. South Korea has also completed extracting data from the black box cockpit voice recorder of the Jeju airplane involved in the crash on December 29. The data is being converted into audio files to determine the pilot's final words. We have completed extracting voice data and will start converting it into audio files today, South Korea's Ministry of Transport said on January 1. The ministry previously announced that both black boxes, flight data, and cockpit voice recorders were recovered from the crashed Jeju Air Boeing 737800. The flight data recorder's exterior was damaged, but the cockpit voice recorder was found in relatively good condition. However, this could mean extracting data from the flight data recorder will take more time. Additionally, the flight data recorder FDR, one of the black boxes under secure investigation by South Korean authorities, is difficult to decode and has missing components. As a result, authorities have decided to send it to the United States for further investigation. 2 additional investigators from Boeing have joined the on-site investigation into the accident at Muan International Airport. With these additions, the U.S. investigation team now comprises 10 members, including 6 Boeing staff and 3 from the National Transportation Safety Board. According to sources, the U.S. team's increased presence is to ensure a thorough examination of the accident. Some industry insiders fear that Boeing's involvement in investigating the tragedy might influence uncovering the true cause. They believe Boeing could shift the investigation's focus toward pilot error rather than mechanical faults in the aircraft. Amid concerns that the U.S. might interpret the data in a way favorable to Boeing, Ju Jong-wan, head of the Aviation Policy Office at the Ministry of Land, stated, "Investigators from the Accident Investigation Board will jointly investigate, so there's no need to worry about biased outcomes favoring Boeing." Although the black boxes have yet to be fully analyzed, experts unanimously agree that the Jeju Air disaster, which killed 179 people, resulted from a combination of multiple hazardous conditions. Jeju Air, the carrier responsible for the tragedy, is South Korea's leading low-cost airline experiencing rapid growth. An aviation official noted that as domestic low-cost airlines proliferate and competition intensifies, the number of flights increases, especially during the year-end holiday season. This could potentially lead to reduced time allocated for safety measures, such as maintenance. Jeju Air has refuted inaccuracies circulating after the disaster, which claimed 179 lives at Muan Airport. Speaking to the press at a January 2 conference, Jeju Air's Administrative Management Director, Song Kyung-hoon, affirmed that the airline adhered to guidelines requiring the allocation of 12 maintenance engineers per aircraft. The director also addressed speculations about pilot fatigue, clarifying that Jeju Air pilots and crew are given 24 hours of rest between international flights. The airline also responded to rumors suggesting that passenger ticket cancellations could cost Jeju Air $177 million in refunds. It was reported that the Jeju Air aircraft involved in the disaster operated 13 flights to and from a total of 8 airports in the 48 hours before the crash. On December 27 and 28 last year, short to medium-haul flights ranging from 38 minutes to 5 hours and 46 minutes were conducted repeatedly. As of Q3 last year, the average monthly operational time per Jeju Air passenger aircraft was 418 hours, the longest in South Korea. The Muan plane crash has sparked debates about whether responsibility lies with Jeju Air or the aircraft manufacturer Boeing. Some argue that Boeing bears significant responsibility for the crash, citing a recent spate of landing gear issues with the Boeing 737-800 model. The 737-800 is one of Boeing's best-selling aircraft models. Most low-cost carriers in South Korea, including Jeju Air, Tway Air, Jin Air, and E-Star Air, operate this model. In response to concerns about the Boeing 737-800, South Korean authorities have launched special inspections of domestic airlines to verify compliance with maintenance regulations for this aircraft. Acting South Korean President Choi Sang-mok has also ordered an emergency safety inspection of the country's entire aviation system. Boeing has not commented on this information, but previously expressed condolences to the victims' families and pledged to assist Jeju Air in the investigation. The investigation is ongoing, but video footage from the moment of the disaster shows the plane attempting an emergency landing on the runway without landing gear. Kim In-ju, director of the Flight Training Center at Korea Aerospace University, stated, "Based on various reports, some suggest the primary cause of the crash was a bird strike, but it's still too early to conclude." In fact, landing gear issues with the Boeing 737-800 have been reported frequently. Even on the morning of December 30, 2024, less than a day after the disaster, another Boeing 737-800, operated by Jeju Air, departed for Jeju Airport, but returned to Gimpo Airport due to landing gear failure. The investigation continues, but footage from the time of the disaster suggests the plane tried to avoid a collision. Unlike South Korea, which initially focused on a bird strike as the cause of the disaster, foreign experts have argued that the concrete embankment contributed to the tragedy. David Learmount, an aviation expert, appeared on Sky News in the UK on December 30 and remarked, "Even if the incident resulted from the pilot's inability to deploy the landing gear, that concrete mound was the direct cause of the passengers' deaths."
That kind of structure should not be there. The ILS antennae, it's where they normally are, but they shouldn't be embedded in something as hard as that.
The concrete embankment was installed just 251 meters from the end of Muan Airport's runway. During the disaster, the Jeju Air aircraft making an emergency landing on the runway collided with the embankment and exploded violently. According to the Airport Facilities Act, installations within airports should be made of breakable materials due to the risk of such collisions in emergencies. Professor Hong Byung-hee of Seoul National University's Chemistry Department appeared on JTBC the previous day, stating, "After the crash, the soil of the mound was damaged in the rear, but the concrete top remains nearly intact." He added, "It seems the plane absorbed the entire impact, leading to its near-total destruction." However, South Korea's Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport firmly rejected criticism that the concrete embankment at Muan Airport posed a hazard. When asked by reporters about the embankment, ministry officials repeatedly said, "We are investigating." The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport has changed its statements 4 times since December 30, 2024, when the first criticisms of the concrete embankment emerged. Many believe that if the embankment is acknowledged as a problem, the ministry and the Korea Airports Corporation may bear primary responsibility. This may explain their apparent efforts to avoid providing answers. The case is still under investigation, and we will continue to update you as soon as new information becomes available. Thank you for tuning into today's program. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more captivating stories on our channel.